Hello, friends, and welcome back to the shop. Today is Sunday, April 6th, and it's a cool, rainy sort of Sunday here in southeastern Pennsylvania. April showers, May flowers, and whatnot, I suppose. But yeah, so I got a interesting to me stuff I want to talk about today. So this might be a wild ride for some of you, but I think it's going to be fun. I have my Tim West pipe. This is from his Old West series, and I have no idea what you would call that, but it's a shape. It's billiard desk, and it's probably Canadian lumberman something or the other, because it's got an oval shank and a long oval shank. And let me get this lit because I haven't had a chance to light it yet. And what I'm smoking is actually the tobacco of the month, chosen by you, the Friday Night Live stream viewers. Um, and it is Cornell Diehl Small Batch The Beast from 2023. And this was chosen on Friday night, and this is my third bowl from that tin. And I got kind of an interesting story about this blend, and then I want to get into some other stuff, but that came up on the Friday night live stream. But this was back in, I believe, 23. I believe was the first release of this. And if you follow me for any length of time, you know I'm a big fan of Perique, Burley and Perique. Those are, if you put Burley and Perique in something, I will smoke it. Um, and I think I was at a pipe show and I got a sample of this. I can't remember. I did smoke it. I did have a bowl of this, and I thought, oh, that's really good. But then, these limited releases, they go out, and if you know me at all, you know I do not chase limited releases. It just doesn't do anything for me. But this, I remember thinking it was good, and then a friend of mine, um, I'm not going to call him out because of the rest of this video, but I will, when I talk about the tobacco. I'm not going to talk about the tobacco in detail today. But a friend of mine gave me this. He's actually a minister and one of the nicest, solidest guys I know. And he said, let me know if you like it. And I thought, oh, I know I'm going to like it because I remember enjoying that sample. And I just never got around to opening it. I was at the pipe show last year and I saw a tin of the same thing for sale, the 2023 release, and I thought, oh, I got to get. So I've got another tin, and then just yesterday, I got a shipment that I have not opened yet that includes 4 tins of the 2025 release. So apparently, that one bowl had quite an effect on me, and it's because two things about it. One is that the Perique is there's a lot of Perique in this. It's according to Cornell and Diehl, it's 51%. Um, it doesn't smoke like a 51. I've smoked straight Perique. I know it's a horrible experience. Not because of the intensity of it, just the flavor. It just doesn't have a good flavor by itself. Um, this doesn't taste like that at all. It's actually quite nice. And it does have a rum topping, which might contribute to some of that. Anyway, this is not about the tobacco today. I've got to spend more time with this because this is only I guess, my fourth bowl if you count the sample that I had. I want to spend some more time picking it apart, and in a couple weeks' time, we'll do an in-depth impressions video of the beast. Uh, but as this was chosen on the Friday night live stream, it became evident from the chat that there was some hullabaloo about this tobacco and its associations with Satanism and dark forces and things like that. And apparently, some people are boycotting Cornell and Diehl over this or whatnot. I don't know anything about this. I do not get into that kind of stuff. The person that was mentioned was well, I don't follow that person, and if you want to know more about why, you can refer back to my advice to new and young pipe smokers video from a couple weeks ago, where I talk about what you do when you meet Buddhists. And yeah, it's not my thing. So, but I see this name coming up, and I see people talking about Satanism and Alistair Crowley and all this stuff, and I thought, this is crazy. And I thought let's talk about this openly and actually factually. Uh, Anybody that's been following me for a long time knows that I'm Roman Catholic. I was born into a Roman Catholic family. I was baptized as an infant. I have been a Roman Catholic my whole life, and I plan to die as a Roman Catholic. That's my faith. I have a great deal of respect for other people's faiths, whether they be Christian or Muslim or Jewish or Hindu or whatever. Could go on and on. But my faith is Roman Catholicism. And I have a lot of friends that are other faiths, and we have some really interesting conversations about what we believe in. And I think the reason that I am able to have those conversations is that I, at a very early age, took an approach of thinking that, a faith untested is no faith at all. I don't know if that's a quote from somewhere. If anybody knows where that comes from, let me know, because I say it a lot and I have no idea the source. But a faith untested is no faith at all. So I was always interested in studying theology, studying my own religion. I mean, there's a period back in high school where I actually considered priesthood, not for a very long time, and I certainly didn't have the calling. But that's the level of interest I had just in understanding the logic of theology and why do we believe what we believe, and how do we know that's the best. We don't know it's right because it's faith, but how do we know that's the best approach? And to do that, I like to challenge myself. So way back in high school, I started not only studying Catholic theology, but other Christian theologies, uh, better understanding Judaism, which is an important component of Christianity. And then got interested in what I call comparative religious studies. And I took courses at the university in both of those areas. I took, even when I was a graduate student, I didn't take the courses. I audited courses in theology and comparative religious studies. So I've learned a lot about Buddhism, Hinduism, various occult beliefs, Egyptology, Egyptian theology. And why did I do this? Well, I did it because I think that if you better understand these other beliefs, and in some cases very ancient beliefs, you better understand where your beliefs come from. And it doesn't mean that your beliefs are not divinely inspired. It just means that there's a basis foundation in human beings, in human nature, to understand the world in a particular way. So that's background. I'm far from being an expert in any of that, but it's just something I've dabbled in for many, many years, and I've enjoyed. And one thing I want to ask you is, what do the following all have in common? The Beatles, a large number of British pubs, J.R.R. Tolkien, William Butler Yeats, Jimmy Page, and C.S. Lewis. What do they all have in common? Because when I teach classes, I take these pauses and wait for people to respond. And I often think to myself, if I had a pipe, I'd be relighting it right now. Of course, you can't do in classes these days. We'll get to what they had in common, but you need to think a little bit about the history of the early 1900s. So the turn of the century. There's a phenomenon that has been called fin de cycle, which I believe is French for end of the cycle. Um, fin de cycle hubristic mania. So hubris, you probably all know what hubris means. We tend to go a little nuts at the end of centuries. We tend to have this idea that we've got it all worked out. And we're living through the aftermath of that. And anybody that remembers the late 1990s, anybody that's old enough to remember that, knows that there was this sense of, we got this. Oh, there's the Y2K thing, but we're going to fix that. And otherwise, we got this worked out. We're putting aside all that nonsense about religion and all that. We're scientists now. We're going forward with science and we're going to understand. And then what inevitably happens is the century passes and people go a little crazy. And so you get challenges to that. Well, wait a minute. How do we know that the science is right? Well, that's a good thing to ask. But you develop these movements, and we've seen it. We've seen wokeism and questioning of the biology of genders. We've seen, uh, trashing of long-held understandings of economics and just social interactions and things like that. And it's turmoil because of all this. And we're coming out of that, I believe, and things are going to settle down. And in 50 years, we're going to look back at this period the same way we're going to look at the period that we're interested in, which is that post 1900, that post turn of the 19th century, 20th century, sorry, turn of the 20th century. We're living through the turn of the 21st. So in late 1800s, early 1900s, people thought we had it all worked out. Physicists were actually telling their students, do not go into physics because it's done. Physics is a dead science. We understand everything. And it wasn't until the whole quantum theory revolution that occurred more in the 1920s that people realized that's nonsense. We don't know anything. And it led to an unraveling of the thread and a re-understanding of the physical world. Well, that had an impact on society. So prior to that happening, there's this sense of we got the world figured out. We understand it. This religion thing is great, and it doesn't matter what religion you are. You remain faithful to that, but we understand the physical world. We got the religion guiding us, but there's got to be something else. And there became this very profound interest in uncovering lost knowledge or esoteric knowledge, occultism. There must be more than what we have. There must be deeper things than what we understand. And this led to some kind of wacky stuff. The thing that comes to mind immediately is the Rosicrucians. The Rosicrucians. It's a really interesting story. You can find books on this, and I'm sure there's YouTube videos on it. I haven't seen any, but I'm sure they exist. The history of the Rosicrucians. If you go down one path, you'll believe that it's this ancient organization that protected knowledge that was handed down from the Egyptians and so on. If you really look into the history of it, it was made up by a couple of guys in the 1800s, early 1900s, and there's no evidence that any of it ever was real. That's the kind of stuff that was going on. And in the midst of all this, an organization that was known as the Golden Dawn arose. Golden Dawn was an organization that was very interested in occult sciences and esotericism, uncovering ancient beliefs, Jewish beliefs about the Kabbalah, understanding Egyptian magic, things like this. Okay, they were not Satanists. It's very important to understand that. If anything, they were humanists. They were attempting to better human existence by uncovering this lost knowledge. Most of them. There's always some bad eggs in the batch, but most of them were thinking of this in a positive way. They delved deeply into mythology and believed that there was truth in the myths, and tried to bring out that truth and try to better understand this mysterious hidden world that we haven't yet figured out. Now, of course, we can look back on that and say, well, that's all crazy. Just like in another 50 years, they're going to look back on our current period and say, we're all crazy. And that's fine. That's just the way history works. And then they'll go nuts in another 25 years. It's just the cycle that happens. They weren't crazy. They were just interested in things that maybe were not scientific, maybe were not firmly rooted in current theologies, maybe not entirely consistent with the Judeo-Christian point of view, but that's what they were interested in, that's what they were delving into. And they had a positive impact in that they really uncovered a lot of connections within mythology and interesting interpretations of mythologies that heavily influenced a lot of people. So the things I mentioned early on, Yeats was a member of the Golden Dawn, was very much involved in it, as was Alistair Crowley, who is someone we're going to talk about more. Crowley was not a good man. Yeats was not a bad man. He wasn't the best of men, but he wasn't a bad man. Their influence went far beyond their membership, though. And another member was A.E. Waite, who if you're at all familiar with Rider-Waite tarot deck, which is the goofy cards that people believe can tell the future, they can't, spoiler. the Rider-Waite tarot deck was designed by A. Waite, who was a member of the Golden Dawn. So the ancient knowledge of the Rider-Waite tarot deck was actually invented in the early 1900s. It's not that ancient. And I hope it's coming through as I talk about this, that I'm interested in it historically, but I do not believe that there's any real theological or spiritual importance in this. It's just a historical curiosity, but it did have an impact on the culture. So culturally, it heavily influenced people like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, who incorporated a lot of the focus on mythology into their writings. They would probably not have gone in that direction if the culture had not shifted in that direction. They were formed in that time when there was this re-emphasis on understanding mythology. So yes, they are in a sense a product of the Golden Dawn and other esoteric organizations that existed at that time. The Beatles, Jimmy Page, Led Zeppelin, they all were heavily influenced by the writings that came out, and The Golden Bow was a book that was not actually from Golden Dawn, but it was very similar in its delving into mythology and trying to get deeper understandings. Pubs. Why in the world did I mention pubs? Alistair Crowley, who's the key figure in all of this. He was a member of the Golden Dawn, very prominent member of the Golden Dawn. His family owned a brewery. And apparently it was relatively popular, Crowley Ale, and then bought up other breweries and became this sort of corporate brewing company, and was very important in establishing a number of pubs or supporting a number of pubs, certainly supplying a number of pubs throughout England, that to this day, and I have a little picture in the title card, to this day have an image of Crowley advertising on them. That's how Alistair Crowley was able to do what he did, because that's the money, the foundation of his wealth. Crowley was a terrible human being, and I will never say anything positive about him other than he was a human being. He had some very strange beliefs. He was a member of the Golden Dawn, but a lot of the members did not like him, and he apparently was at odds with Wade, and this is the reason why I mentioned Wade earlier, as well as Yeats. He had some very strange beliefs. He tried to establish his own order. I can't remember what it was called, but he set up in Sicily, and that he eventually got evicted from Sicily. He was a drug addict. He was a pervert. He used his power in that he was the head of this order that he established to force people into doing things that I'm not going to talk about. He was a bad person. And he was flamboyant, and he knew the power of creating controversy, even if that controversy is bad. You create a controversial video on YouTube, you're going to get a lot of views. Well, the same, Crowley understood that. And so he started using satanic imagery, and he gave himself the nickname the Beast. Okay, this is the connection, and it's not a connection really to anything satanic. None of the rituals, none of the beliefs, it just was his way of labeling in order to get attention, because he knew that it would be abrasive in the current society. The other thing that Crowley was known for was he smoked straight Perique tobacco soaked in rum. He probably did that to get attention as well. Somebody one day said, you can't smoke that straight, and he said, watch me, and then everybody said, oh wow, you can do that, and he just continued to do it and probably hated every minute of it. But that's all we need to say about him. This tobacco, 51% Perique soaked in rum, is delicious, and since it's reminiscent of Crowley's smoking habits, they used his nickname. End of story. Nothing satanic about it. Nothing even necessarily evil about it. Smoking Pipes actually has a little piece on Crowley and the Beast, and if you read it, they start off by saying something like, Alistair Crowley was a horrible human being. So yeah, he was bad. But does that mean we shouldn't enjoy this tobacco? Well, should we not go to pubs that have Crowley's advertising on it? A lot of people still do. Should we not read Yeats' poetry? I think that would be unfortunate. There's a lot of value in it. Should we not listen to the Beatles or Led Zeppelin? Well, I don't. I mean, occasionally I do, but it's not like I'm a big fan or anything. But you know, if you're a huge fan of Led Zeppelin, does that mean you're a Satanist? Does that mean you're a bad person? Does that mean you're not being faithful to your religion? That's silly. Should we stop reading C.S. Lewis for goodness sakes? Should we stop reading Tolkien because they were influenced by the Golden Dawn? I mean, you can go down this rabbit hole, and you know, some folks on the live stream started pointing out things like, well, you know, if we can't smoke the Beast, does that mean we can't eat deviled eggs? It's silly. It's silly. Your faith should be bigger than something like that. Your faith should be something that can be tested and should be tested, because a faith untested is no faith at all. Now, I do believe that there are things you shouldn't do because they're going to have a negative impact on your faith and your soul. I think those things are usually pretty obvious. Like, I would not hang up a satanic image in my house. You know, I'm not going to prominently display something like that, even if it's artistically interesting. Even if there's some artistic value to it, I wouldn't do it because I just think that's going to have a negative impact on my soul. I have a great deal of respect for Buddhism, and I believe that there's a lot of deep similarities between Buddhist beliefs and Christian beliefs. And I think there's a lot that we can learn from one another. But I wouldn't put a Buddha in my house because it's a different religious tradition. It doesn't fit with my religious beliefs. Although I can appreciate them and I can learn from them, I don't want to appear or the make the appearance that I am actually treating that with reverence, because it's not something I treat with reverence. It's something I treat with interest. There's a big difference there. Having said all that, faith is a very personal thing. So if someone believes that they can't enjoy deviled eggs because that's bringing Satan into their lives, then they should not eat deviled eggs. You know, I'm saying that I'm making a joke out of it, but I really do mean it. If you believe that listening to the Beatles is somehow leading you on a path to hell, don't listen to the Beatles. It's a very personal thing, and nobody should judge it. This was not about judgment. I hope nobody took it that way. Again, I don't even know the person that started this. I honestly don't. I've not seen it. I'm not intending. I don't intend to be commenting on any of that. But what I do believe is that you should understand things before you're afraid of them. And that's kind of the main message in this. You know, yeah, it's spooky, the Beast, you know, the whole Crowley, and Ozzy Osbourne wrote a song about him. Like, Ozzy Osbourne's not a good human being either, but that's another story altogether. Um, yeah, it's easy to think about those things and to just, you know, keep them over. But I really recommend that you test your faith, that you understand what you're pushing away. Not in a way where you would ever give it reverence, not in a way where you would ever give it the benefit of the doubt, I suppose you could say. But see where that's coming from. And this way, when you're challenged with it, in some other form perhaps, you'll be stronger to defend yourself against it. It's childish to you know, stranger danger kind of thing. Works great when you're a kid, and it's very important when you're a kid. But when you're an adult, it just makes you antisocial or asocial, I suppose. Um, yeah, don't do that. Learn, understand, make yourself a better person, make your faith stronger, and maybe gain a better appreciation for the person on the other side. Uh, Maybe see that they're a human being. Maybe they're a good human being. Maybe their goals are the same as your goals. They're just coming at them from a different angle. And that's okay. You don't have to change them. If they're working towards the same thing that you're working towards, that's okay. Maybe whoever gets there first will be the winner, but you'll both benefit from getting there. So, yeah, I guess the bottom line is never look at someone without considering that they are a fellow human being, and then understand where they're coming from. And then if you find it necessary to reject them, reject them. But don't label things and push them aside. It's just not good. Not good for anyone. So, I think I've preached enough for one day, and God, I didn't mean to preach. I hope it didn't come off that way. I find this stuff interesting. I always have. So what am I going to do today? Well, in theory, I'm going to clean out along the fence in my yard where a bunch of leaves have accumulated over the winter, and I'm going to put down some grass seed, in theory. But it's raining, which is good for the grass seed, but not so good for me walking around, and really not good for picking up the leaves. So the leaves might get stayed. The leaves might get left where they are, and the grass seed will go down regardless, because I can do that pretty quickly, even if it's a light rain. So yeah, that's going to be my afternoon. And other than that, I'm going to do a whole lot of nothing until tomorrow. Got an early start tomorrow. So with that, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. Hope you found some value. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm right or wrong, or how you see the whole thing. And by the whole thing, I mean looking at others and understanding where they're coming from and trying to challenge your faith and test your faith and make sure that you understand what you believe. Not about this. This is tobacco. Good tobacco. We'll talk about that in a couple weeks. So with that, my friends, I'm going to draw this to a close. I hope you have a fantastic Sunday and you're looking forward to a great week ahead. And until we speak again, I will look forward to talking to you all again very soon. Goodbye now.